And I finally got it. A guy called up from the bank and said, "What bank are you with?" And I
At
got
100 years old, Dick Van Dyke is no longer just a Hollywood legend frozen in black and white reruns or musical memories. He is a living archive of entertainment history, a man whose life stretches across radio, early television, Broadway, classic cinema, modern streaming, and generations of cultural change. But reaching a full century of life comes with a cost that no award, applause, or standing ovation can cancel out. Longevity means loss. It means watching the people who shaped your journey disappear one by one until the rooms that once echoed with laughter grow quieter. Dick Van Dyke's life today is filled with gratitude, humor, and movement, but it is also defined by remembrance. Behind the smile is a man who has outlived nearly everyone who walked beside him during the most important chapters of his life. Before he ever became a household name, before audiences knew his grin or his famous physical comedy, Dick Van Dyke was simply a restless, energetic boy growing up in the Midwest. He was born in 1925 in West Plains, Missouri, but most of his childhood unfolded in Danville, Illinois. His family lived modestly, without luxury or excess, and daily life revolved around hard work, church, and community. From a very young age, Dick had boundless energy. He ran everywhere, climbed everything, and constantly looked for ways to make people laugh. That instinct to entertain was there long before he ever stepped onto a stage. Interestingly, acting was not his original dream. In high school, Dick seriously considered becoming a minister. He was deeply involved in church activities, enjoyed speaking in front of people, and felt drawn to helping others through words. At the same time, he joined the school drama club almost by accident. That decision quietly changed everything. On stage, he discovered that he could communicate joy, warmth, and humor in a way that felt natural and effortless. It wasn't fame he was chasing. It was connection. When World War II broke out, Dick joined the United States Army Air Forces. Even in uniform, his instinct to entertain never left him. He participated in variety shows, performed for fellow servicemen, and worked as a radio announcer. Those experiences taught him timing, improvisation, and confidence behind a microphone. By the time the war ended, he knew one thing with certainty. Entertainment wasn't just something he enjoyed, it was what he was meant to do. After the war, Dick worked his way through radio and into the early days of television when performers had to do everything themselves. He teamed up with a friend, Phil Erickson, forming a comedy duo called the Merry Mutes. Their act relied heavily on pantomime, facial expressions, and physical storytelling. This period was crucial. It's where Dick perfected his signature style, the rubbery limbs, the controlled falls, the ability to turn clumsiness into choreography. His big break came when he moved to New York and landed a role in the Broadway musical Bye Bye Birdie. Despite not being formally trained as a dancer, his natural rhythm and charm won audiences over. He earned a Tony Award, and Hollywood immediately took notice. That success led directly to the creation of The Dick Van Dyke Show in 1961, a sitcom that would permanently reshape television comedy. On the show, Dick played Rob Petrie, a comedy writer whose physical mishaps became legendary. Families gathered around their televisions to watch him trip over ottomans and navigate married life with warmth and humor. The show worked because it felt real, and a huge part of that realism
I'd be
came
dead
from
if
the
I
woman
hadn't
cast
actually
opposite
met
him,
these
Mary
problems
Tyler
head
Moore.
on.
When Mary Tyler
I don't
Moore
think
walked
I
into the audition
would
room,
be here.
the search
You
for
know,
Rob Petrie's
diabetes.
wife ended instantly. Dick recognized it immediately. She wasn't just beautiful or talented, she understood comedy, timing, movement, rhythm. Despite an age gap, they connected effortlessly, both as performers and as people. Their on-screen marriage felt authentic because their off-screen friendship was genuine. They spent years working side by side, developing an unspoken language built on glances, gestures, and shared instincts. Dick often admitted he had a crush on Mary, but it never crossed into anything inappropriate. Their bond was rooted in respect and admiration. They supported each other through fame, pressure, and personal struggles. To Dick, Mary wasn't just a co-star, she was family. When Mary Tyler Moore passed away in 2017 after years of health complications, Dick felt the loss deeply. He described her as his work wife, a phrase that carried decades of shared memories. At her memorial, he spoke not of fame, but of her heart and strength. Even now, at 100, he speaks of her with warmth and sadness, proof that their connection never faded. Carl Reiner. If Mary Tyler Moore was Dick's on-screen partner, Carl Reiner was his creative soulmate. Carl created the Dick Van Dyke Show and made the selfless decision to step aside from starring in it so Dick could lead it. That choice forged a friendship that lasted more than 60 years. Carl's sharp wit paired perfectly with Dick's physical comedy. Together, they created something timeless. Their relationship extended far beyond work. For decades, Dick visited Carl almost every night. They ate together, watched movies, talked about comedy, life, and family. Carl often said Dick was his muse. When Carl Reiner died in 2020 at age 98, Dick described the world as quieter without him. Losing Carl wasn't just losing a collaborator, it was losing a brother. That bond extended to Carl's son, Rob Reiner, whom Dick watched grow up on studio sets. Dick became a constant presence in Rob's life, almost like a second father. As Rob matured into a successful actor and director, their relationship evolved into one of mutual respect. The Reiner household was a gathering place for artists, and Dick was always there, sharing stories and laughter. When Rob and his wife Michelle passed away suddenly in 2025, the loss struck Dick deeply. Rob wasn't just a colleague, he was family. Losing him felt like losing a son. It marked the quiet end of a social world Dick had lived in for decades, one built on shared dinners, conversations, and creative trust. Walt Disney, another towering figure in Dick's life. Walt personally chose Dick for Mary Poppins, believing his energy and heart were perfect for the role. Walt became a mentor, guiding Dick through the transition from television to film. They bonded over curiosity, creativity, and a shared belief in joy. When Walt Disney died in 1966, Dick felt as though the industry lost its guiding light. Walt's advice stayed with him forever, especially the idea of never losing one's sense of wonder. Every Disney project afterward carried that memory. Gene Hackman. Though very different in style, Dick also formed a meaningful bond with Gene Hackman. They represented two sides of Hollywood's evolution, comedy and grit, lightness and intensity. They respected each other deeply as craftsmen. When Gene Hackman passed away in 2025, Dick felt another door close on an era only they truly understood. Ed Asner was another pillar of that generation. Though their personas differed, Dick's optimism balanced Ed's intensity. They shared deep respect for acting and union work, often advocating for performers' rights together. When Ed Asner passed away in 2021, Dick described him as one of the last true actors of their time. At 100 years old, Dick Van Dyke remains active, curious, and grateful, but he is also acutely aware of the silence left behind. He is the last living thread connecting so many defining moments in entertainment history. His joy persists not because loss didn't touch him, but because he chose to carry the memories forward. Dick Van Dyke doesn't just represent a century of entertainment, he represents resilience, friendship, and the quiet strength it takes to keep smiling when so many voices you loved have gone quiet.